I think I'm going. I think I can. Got the mic. What's it called? I don't even know yet. Well, let's get some guidance. How about that? Father, we are so very grateful for the blessing of this day, for the blessing to be able to wake up and to be able to participate and experience in it. We're grateful for this gift, Father, that is the present. Father, we ask for thy guidance to help us to be able to just translate thy will, Father. That's all, nothing more. Father, these things we pray in thy Son's name. Amen. Oh, word. Okay, welcome to the Hobo Hideaway, everybody. The segment's called Talking Shit with Jack Schitt. I am your host, Jack Schitt. See here, anything expressed here is strictly for documentary, entertainment, and educational purposes only. Heavy quotation on the entertainment part. And let me see what else. We don't buy, sell, or trade anything ever. And and any opinions that we express here are strictly the opinions of the person sitting behind the microphone and anybody else who might want to, type on a keyboard and leave a message, a post or whatever it's called, comment. Anyway, and if you want to leave a comment and you want to reply on somebody else's comment, please always be mindful of how respectful, considerate, and kind you are to others. That's an important factor. Here's the thing is most people in this world, they live their lives, especially in the Western society, I suppose, more than even a lot of places overseas. But the fact is this country, the United States of America that I live in, is completely ruled and dominated by the economic system, by the dollar. I remember growing up, kind of, sort of. It's a vague memory. It might have happened. It might have just been a dream that I was a child once upon a time and had a childhood. But anyway, in that dream or memory or whatever it may be, leave the camera alone. Hey, just because I'm over here having a conversation and talking doesn't mean you got to get all up in it. And at any rate, that's my odd cat. She thinks she's the boss. Well, I am human. You work for me after all. Oh, yeah. Duh, I forgot. At any rate, what was I going to say? Ruled by the almighty dollar, and everybody would say, hey, you need to live by the golden rule, man. And, of course, in Sunday school, they taught us the golden rule is to do unto others as you want them to do unto you. In other words, people will know how you want to be treated by the way you treat them. And that's a pretty darn good rule. I like that rule. That's a really good rule or definition of the golden rule, if you will. And then in the tough crowds, or street urchins, whatever we were called at that time, and we were called a lot of things like, trouble and nuisance and a scourge, but, we were dumb punk kids. But running the street, living on the street and doing, survival, man. But there, the golden rule a lot of people played with was do unto others before they do unto you. I never liked that one. Not even a little. But when I heard people saying that and talking like that, I knew that they were the ones that I needed to avoid. And anybody that I saw that behaved in that manner, whether they spoke the words or not, was irrelevant. Behavior, it's what we do, not what we say, that determines who we are. Of course, it's what we think and believe and things, I suppose, like that all contributes. But it's our actions that define us to the world. True fact. So when I see these people behaving in such a manner where they do unto others before somebody does unto them, expecting that the whole world's just going to screw you over, so they're going to screw the world over before they get screwed over, those are the kinds of people that I have tried to avoid. I'm not always successful because, oh, babe, I'll tell you, I've been taken for a ride more than once. There have been times when I thought I had tattooed sucker right across my forehead. But that kindness that I show was never a weakness. It was, in fact, a superpower. And I still believe that. But then there's the other golden rule that actually is the true golden rule, the ruling factor of the society, which is he who has the gold makes the rules. He who has the gold makes the rules. That's the world we live in today. That's what runs everything. It runs our religions. It runs our educational systems. It runs all the political systems. And of course, it runs the economic systems, and all of them are all tied together, controlling us systematically from one side or another. Little gates and fences that lock us into this civilization society that is very unnatural, completely goes against all of natural law. At any rate, yeah. So why do they do all this? Why do we do all of this? Because we are the ones doing it. We're the ones who have to go out and believe. We believe that the dollar rules the world. We believe that that dollar has some sort of value to it. We believe that. We, the people, we keep perpetuating these systems. We keep growing the government. We keep creating jobs within the government that don't really have any real purpose to them and do the same function that other positions do, just so we can create more jobs because we're all scared we can't have a job. We're scared there's not enough jobs to go around in the system that is not sustainable. We keep trying to save this system. It's just like, in 2008 when the banks crashed and they got bailed out by the government. Well, where did the government get that money when they're trillions of dollars in debt already on paper? If that money was real, did they actually deliver pallets of money to each of these banks to bail them out? Or did they just say, okay, we'll just erase that debt and delete it because all those numbers only exist on paper? That's true fact. They were little digital numbers, and they're not even on paper. In fact, I apologize. Most of that stuff's been destroyed and completely wiped out. Any kind of hard documentation. So they're just numbers in an algorithm somewhere in some cloud. That's it. Well, they keep piling and compiling all this information in a digital format, and they got to store it somewhere. They got to put it somewhere, and they just don't know where. And that's the thing. We based currency, what value was, or they do, whoever's in control, but it is us, the people. All right. And we base that value, for a long time off of precious metals and minerals, gold, silver, and copper, and whatever, things that they could utilize to make pretty objects, artworks, and sorry, my feet got cold. I got to put my socks on and keep my dedos, zapatos warm and toasty and snuggly. Yes. Palenques. All right. Well, of course, I need to open this window over here for some airflow. Oh, that's a good idea. A little bit of light, too. Why not? Oh, good stuff. All right. Back to it. What was I talking about? I had to open a window and put on my socks and a cat. And, oh, yeah. Value, money, monetary systems. What is it that ever, and I've always asked this, what ever made gold valuable to begin with? We think about, for us as people, what do we need to survive and sustain, maintain our physical existence? Well, we need to put food in our bodies. We need to put water in our bodies, and we need shelter from the elements. Somebody to give a good hug to and get a good hug from every now and again. Transference of energy. That's what that's called. SEX, Sacred Energy Exchange. Funny how most of our words, the majority of our words in our language that we've used our whole life are just acronyms. But you think about now, that's what we really need. And then now everything else is just a desire. Okay, so we fill the house with all this junk and stuff, as a desire. And that's cool. All right. But how did we ever come to the point when we felt like these metals had any real value to them other than to use them as materials to create things with? Because that's what we are. We are all creators, created by a creator for the purpose to be creators, to create. Pretty basic, pretty easy, pretty simple. Okay. And then so anything and everything out there that's provided by the earth, because it all is provided by Mother Earth, nature's bounty, man. And we don't even need all of this civilization and society in order to survive in this life, because everything we need to eat and whatever grows out there, and there's fresh water. Well, there used to be clean fresh water. At any rate, right now in our world that we live in, they're building these data centers, these great big warehouses that are going to be full of these mainframe computers that are collecting data. And we went through this evolution where gold was the standard for the dollar, then oil was the standard for the dollar, and now it's information. Truly. And they got all these people going around through all these, what do they call, social networking. And even this video right here, this conversation, they're taking that information and they're going to upload it into their data centers and they're going to save it. They're not going to be picky. Even all the crap I've deleted, I've been doing this YouTube conversation video since August of 2021. But I like to delete and purge my crap on a regular for a lot of different reasons. One of them is I don't want the view hours piling up. I don't want to be monetized. And, yeah, I guess it's supposed to be a choice, but I don't want to be forced into it either. All right. Secondly, it keeps my box cleaner, man. And thirdly, all that crap from the past is in the past. And I'm not that same person anymore. It's all been evolution to be who I am today. I am not the same person I was a year ago. I've had a lot of people say, you've changed. You're right. I've changed. That's the point. We all change. The only constant in this existence is change. That's the only thing that stays the same is change. Constant change. Evolution, baby. So what's the point? Why are they creating all these data centers and they're allocating the land to put in these power relay stations and whatnot to feed power to these ginormous warehouses that they're collecting data, and then they are allocating the water rights and all that and for their cooling systems and so forth and whatnot. Why are they doing that? What's the need to collect? Why is all of a sudden data is the greatest resource on the planet? Information and data. What is it that they're feeding? Why are they collecting it? And they're replacing the human factor in all of the workforce with AI and robots, thus making humans obsolete. True fact. So they're allocating all the resources that help us sustain life for their data centers, and they're no longer going to need any of us in the workforce, so nobody's going to be able to earn any money, and there's not going to be any resources for food, water, or otherwise for us to sustain on. So that stands to reason that we will be put out to the garbage with the rest of the unnecessary what's it called, anything else when they we don't need that line anymore, everything goes in the garbage. Or, onto the auction block, there's that too. There are a lot of companies corporations, when they start to liquidate their assets, they just auction it all off. It's pretty truth. pretty true. And, that's fact. We have always, our civilization and society, not always, but whenever there is a civilization society, it's designed for the purpose of siphoning the people, enslaving the people, and, you know, allocating and sucking up all the resources on the planet to funnel it into one place. Why are they collecting all this information and data if they're just going to exterminate the human race? Why? What do they need all this information and data? Why do they need to know who I am and why I'm talking and what I talk about and all this stuff? Now, the only theory I can come up with fits with the whole Anunnaki situation, where Nibiru's coming close to the freaking planet and they're getting ready to, for all these years since the last time the Noah's Ark flood, that was the last time the planet came by and caused all that devastation and destruction. It didn't cause it, just triggers it. It's a clockwork thing. But every time the alignment happens and the clock comes and ticks to this and chimes on this point where we're coming to, the Anunnaki come down and they pick up and all the resources, all the minerals, any fresh water, any gold, silver, everything they need, all the precious crystals, quartz and diamonds and whatever else, because they can use those crystals to store information. It helps with that. Gold's very conductive and doesn't corrode. Yeah, aluminum is pretty good too in that sense. They use these materials and whatnot for their exploration and advancement of their enterprise and corporate, Galactic Federation stuff. Yeah, and all the information and data that they've been harvesting is because they want to know, was this experiment a success or a failure? They created the experiment according to the story, the theology of the Anunnaki, that what we call the Adam and Eve event, where we had our Adam and Eve, that was when they created and brought into existence the Homo sapien species that we are. Well, and according to that story, they gave us too much of the divine spark, which made it so that we just didn't want to work. We didn't want to be enslaved. We even felt like we were above them as far as divinity goes. Well, that scared the crap out of them. And, when they got as much out of us as they could and couldn't get no more, and the Bureau came back around for the pickup, and they went ahead, they said, well, the planet's going to get wiped out, and they're all going to get wiped out. Let's just let them get wiped out. And that's what Enlil said. He just, hey, let them get wiped out. But Inky, being the creator of this experiment, he loves his creation. I love my creations. Whenever I make anything, look, I made this pipe right here, this tobacco pipe, out of a piece of cherry wood. I love it. Not just because I enjoy, the smoke out of it and the taste of the cherry wood, but I made it. I don't even have any desire to want to go buy anybody else or use anybody else's handmade pipes in that, aspect, because I got this one that I made. It just makes it that much better because I made it. Well, so Inky felt the same way about us. He made us, so he wanted to save us. So he picked the dude that he got to build the boat and had him save himself and his family and some animals and all that. And he did the same with every other culture around the world. They all have their own stories of their own survivor of that occurrence. And there was lots of survivors around the world. Well, after the devastation of the flood and the subsiding of the waters and everything started settling down, they came back to reestablish their new, base of operation to mine the planet, to replant the garden of the planet, because that's what this whole planet is, the Garden of Eden. All right, fully rich of life and minerals and abundance of everything. And we were originally created to take care of this garden. Well, we failed at it miserably. That's why they went ahead and let us get wiped out. Didn't try to save us, except for Inky. Well, of course, when they got back and found us here, boy, Enlil was pissed off. He was fit to be tied, man. He was pissed. He's like, man, they need to go. But Inky pleaded to the council and to Anu, the king, and all of them, and said, hey, look, the All God, and they believe in the All God, the God of all of existence. That's their God. All right. And so they believe that all of existence, the God of all of existence, allowed us to survive. Therefore, it was meant to be. So the council voted to allow it under supervision and observation. We'll give it to the next cycle, they said. So that's what they've been doing. They've been giving it to the next cycle, and we've been monitored and supervised and controlled and manipulated all this time in this full circle. Everything goes in a full circle. Everything's reciprocal. All right. And so now we're at that bottom point of that cycle where it's coming to an end, and then there will be a new beginning. And they're collecting all that data and all that information to send back to the council for review, go back into their mainframes. So they're collecting it in all these different data centers all over the planet, so that then it can be siphoned up into the mothership, the main, to the home world, whatever. All right, uploaded. That's the only logical reason I can come up with. And then they can review it and decide if the experiment, which is us, was a success or a failure. Have we advanced to the point where we can be integrated into the Galactic Federation? You got to be mindful, too, of the fact that all these beings, all these other entities, or whatever you want to call them, humanoid beings from all these other worlds, they're all spiritually evolved way beyond us to the point where, they ain't trying to kill each other. They ain't trying to eat each other anymore. They were back in, a long time ago before the Orion Wars. But the Orion Wars is what almost destroyed the universe, and they were able to pull together and create the Galactic Federation. And that was why we have the Galactic Federation now. All right. And now, of course, within the Galactic Federation, all those factions within the Galactic Federation don't necessarily get along with each other. They still have their, feuds from eons ago. But that's one of those things that just kind of manipulates and gets into all that, everything. Man, I don't necessarily agree with everything my neighbors do. But in order to function and live with one another in the system that is our township in here, we got to get along with each other and help each other out. Same thing. Whenever I worked at a job anywhere, I didn't get along with everybody I worked with. And when I was working for the phone company, which is the career job that I chose and spent the most of my lifetime working at, I was there for a very long time. I had a lot of people that I didn't get along with. I worked my butt off and did my job, and I was very good at it and proficient at it, and I excelled naturally. And then people that came in and had more education than me and more experience than me, and they struggled and couldn't keep up, would get upset and jealous and pissed off at me. And then they would try to sabotage me. Well, you got the same thing in the Galactic Federation. It's the same type of concept. You got different factions within that try to hurt each other because they're jealous and envious of each other. But they are still evolving, and there's still hope. And we got that same going on for us. We are still evolving mentally, spiritually, and whatever else. And there is hope for us. There is hope that we will evolve to the point where we will put away all of our little petty differences, embrace them, and realize that your strengths complement me because I have weaknesses in those aspects. And that's where my wife and I, we get along. We are like total polar opposites, my wife and I. But her strengths complement me because that's where I'm weak at. I don't know about all the technical crap. I have no desire to play on computers all day long. She does all the editing and all the fancy technical fun stuff for our channel, for this little, fun experiment of ours. And then I do all the physical stuff, and I'm struggling with that because of my health issues. But I still am able and capable to do a lot more of the physical activities that she is unable to. I still was able to get out and mow the lawn yesterday, even though it took me 3 tries. I had to take a few breaks. It's only a small yard too, but I get tired quick and easy, man. I'm sorry. Same thing with, all the arts and crafts and stuff. She can't spend hours on the carving tool anymore. She's a really good carver, though. She taught me. She can't spend hours on branding iron anymore, but same thing. She's going to start letting me use that too, by the way, which is cool. But I still got to get my hands fixed. But she does the majority of all of that stuff, and I do the physical stuff. I hang the drywall and do the plumbing and electrical and the landscaping, and she even lets me do the dishes and cook the meals and do the laundry and all that good stuff. Isn't that fun? I get to make the beds and all that fun stuff. She lets me, man. Yeah, but you know what? She also lets me not have to go deal with the corporate entities anymore. She let me retire from that aspect and let me come be a house husband. Isn't that neat? Because she didn't like being a housewife. She didn't want to do that cleaning and the cooking and all the house chores. She'd rather go out and create and build things and work with other people in that aspect. And like I said, polar opposites. I'd rather stay home and just, do the stuff here. So my strengths pick up where she has weaknesses or whatever it's called, and her same thing. Her strengths cover my weaknesses, so therefore we work symbiotic together and copacetic and get along. And eventually, all of our species of human, all of our species will learn to put aside our petty little differences and realize that we need each other to help be one whole. That's truth. And that's what the Galactic Federation's been working on as well for eons now, for a long time, ever since the Orion Wars. They've been trying really hard to become one unit rather than a bunch of different planetary species. But yeah, good times, man. Good times. I don't really know. All I know is we need to learn to get along with each other. That's a fact. It doesn't matter what the petty little stupid differences are. It's that stupid Californication, the draconians. They're the biggest ones that want to keep us in the darkness the way we are. The draconians are very jealous of us because they know we have the ability and capability to become way more than they are. In fact, we already are spiritually and mentally more than them. But they use these little manipulative tools all over the place to convince us that we need money and we need these things, and they program us with this video with Hollywood, and they program us and broadcast those programs on these networks, right? Yeah. Isn't that fun? That's so much fun. And they keep us enslaved with this ideology and theology and keep us convinced that we are incapable of that evolution. All we got to do is turn it off. So with that being said, folks, turn it off, go outside, ground yourself out, get in tune, become one with all of existence. The divine spark resides within each and every single one of us, and every single one of us are capable of accessing it. Find a way. Good luck to each and every single one of you out there. And until next time, remember, kindness is the key. And I love you. Later.